Welcome to B2B No Bull.
That's right, no double speaker gibberish, no talking heads. This is a safe place to talk about what you as professionals in the space can do to look like heroes to your bosses, make sales very happy, bring success to the organization, and that bottom line. Let's get started.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode of B2B No Bull. We are the podcast that tries to strip away all the jargon, all the acronyms, all the marketing doublespeak, and just tell it like it is. I'm Liz Brohan, and I'm here with my brother, Mark. Mark, you want to say hello?
Hello.
So today we're going to dive in on kind of a spicy topic, right? We are going to be talking with an expert on B2B marketing agencies. And we want to talk about what does evolution for marketing agencies look like? And of course, what are some of the pain points they're experiencing? And so with us today is Mark Schneider. And I'm happy to introduce Mark because, as I was just saying a minute ago, Mark is the founder and CEO of RSW US. And they are known for being able to help agencies, both B2B and B2C, with business development. And I had hired Mark at my old agency. And we don't want to offend any marketing agency folks that are listening today. But, once again, we just want to be able to talk about what Mark Schneider is seeing out there in the industry that might be helping you in terms of your evolution. But before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit more about Mark. Very interesting fellow. So like I said, he has been, running this firm for quite a long time, helping agencies develop new business. He also runs another side of the business where he helps maybe smaller clients find a great agency fit. So there's like a selection service that he also runs. And, he's been operating in the marketing and advertising arenas for years and years and years, right?
Wow.
Yeah. He first came to marketing and advertising via an internship at Needham, Harper, and Steers, which is now DDB Needham, which everybody knows. It's super famous. And he has spent close to 10 years before that, right? Or maybe after that, with SC Johnson and also KAO brands, right? He's also somebody I think who's tapping into the younger generations really well because he believes in a work-life balance. Mark has some really interesting hobbies. He's a runner, he's a gardener. And what I find most intriguing is that he runs a book club for men. And I think they read both fiction and nonfiction. So I think we all saw the headline this week that I think readership for Joy is way down, but not in this room. So welcome, Mark.
I really appreciate it, Liz and Mark. Thanks so much for the introduction. And you gotta keep it interesting to keep it interesting. So do appreciate you inviting me here today.
Well, you know this pain that the agencies are going through inside and out here. Let's start with what everybody thinks they're doing in positioning, but are they? Especially because things are changing so fast in the digital world alone.
And is that a good place to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I started RSW back in 2005, it wasn't long after that I had an opportunity to present to a group of about 15 agencies, smaller agencies of varying types and sizes, and asked them to write out their elevator pitch. And probably 13 of the 15 agencies basically said the same thing. They were strategic and they played in certain categories and they worked hard and fun to work with and all that good stuff. And that frankly is holds true today. I mean, when we bring on a new agency client, one of the first things we do is sit down and really try and understand sort of where their points of difference exist and try and shape a story that's going to help set them apart. But it's hard to just sit in your own little world and identify things that are going to really help set yourself apart from other firms that are out there. You need to look at sort of their technical strengths, or is there a certain not just the industry as a whole, but are there elements within the industry that you can really sort of zero in on? So it historically has always been a challenge for firms, and I think just taking an objective look, maybe having other people review what you've put together in terms of positioning is probably a good way to go.
I would totally agree with all of that. As a former agency owner, I was always reluctant to pick a vertical that we said we specialized in, because we didn't want to walk away from any other business where we felt we had relevance. But at the same time, it doesn't provide any clarity as to why we're different.
Right.
So is that something you would advise?
Yeah, I mean, it's that FOMO, that fear of missing out. And I think zeroing in on a specific category or categories and staying true to it is the right and good way to go. We have a client that's been with us for about 8 years, and we started working with the father of the son who's now running the agency. And it was a struggle for him. I'll never forget phone calls all the time to discuss what the implications of becoming a B2B to C only agency meant to the organization. And he finally ripped the Band-Aid off, and he focused his agency, and his son is focusing his agency. And it's helped them win some major accounts like Grasshopper Mowers and Clopay, accounts that are particularly meaningful to the agency and really stay true to the essence of who they are. So it's a hard thing for a firm to do. But at the end of the day, I think it pays dividends if you can really sort of zero in on either a specific category or a small grouping of categories. If you get too broad, you start looking like everybody else. It's harder to really sort of manage your messaging. And you've got prospects coming to your site, trying to figure out where the heck they need to go because they see so much of every other category represented that they just don't feel like they're at home.
I mean, in the agency world, there does seem to be still a lot of generalization. I mean, just a case in point. If your homepage could be copy-pasted into 50 other agency sites, you don't have a position. I think to Liz's point, you got a placeholder.
Right, definitely. And I think that, being able to show a prospect that you are not only expert in their category and are steeped in their category, but understand the issues that they're dealing with and be able to talk to them about ways in which you can solve the problems that they have. We just kicked off a new client recently, and I always review sort of the proposals and RFP responses that they share with me before a kickoff meeting. And this one particular agency did a great job of upfront in the proposals talking about the prospect and the challenges they're dealing with and the ways in which they've helped other clients deal with similar challenges. And then it was at the end of the response that they started talking about themselves in more of a capabilities-like fashion. So I think that being focused from a category standpoint and talking about being relevant to that prospect and talking about the issues that are going to be meaningful to them and make sense to them, is in my opinion the right way to go. Because in our surveys, I think it was 95% of marketers tell us that agencies talk too much about themselves. And so, as much as you can just 180 that and turn it around, whether that's a proposal response or a first meeting with the prospect or a presentation that you're giving, make it about them, and you're just going to find yourself in a much better place.
Well, I got a one-word response for that, and it's preach, because I totally buy into that completely. I don't want to talk about the agency. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about what your business challenges are and I want to be extremely relevant in the solutions that I bring to the table for your firm. So,
You're absolutely right.
So I think,
Yep.
the more you keep saying that and the more people hear it, the better off they're going to be in terms of developing new business relationships.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
You know, my script here it says boom, but since I just finished Al Pacino's book Sonny Boy, I'm going to give you a hoo-ha. So, but to follow our conversation here, if you're constantly writing your first industry white paper during kickoff, like you're summing up here, it's simply too late.
You're absolutely right, and I think that just nice. I think as it relates to like thought leadership, you know, critically important that you help prospects and clients know that you're ahead of the curve and that you're there to be a good, helpful, strategic partner for that marketing client. I think in our surveys, marketers rate agencies as a 6.2 out of 10 and being excellent partners. And marketers today are being asked to do so much more with less that they're seeking out information. And so if you can be out there with good quality blog content that's value added, sharing ideas with not only prospects, but with the clients that you have and let them know that you're there. What I tell our clients and prospects is you want to make that marketer feel, or that prospect, I should say, feel like you're not trying to win their business, but you're there to be a good, helpful, strategic partner. And that's the same holds true on the client side. When you're dealing with your clients, you want to show that client that you're not just there to solve the communication or creative challenge that they're having, but you're there to help move their business forward in whatever way you can. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're just writing your first white paper when you're, showing up at the table for that presentation with that prospect, that in my opinion is far too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also wondering, so you had said that some of your corporate clients would look at an agency and give them a 6.2% rating in terms of being a good business partner. What else are they saying behind our back? What else do they need?
Well, as you mentioned up front, I do run an agency search firm. We don't do a ton of searches. A lot of marketers we're finding are running their own searches these days. But when marketers do come to the table looking for a new agency, they usually come to the table for one of two reasons. One is they wake up and realize that their agency isn't really keeping them ahead of the curve. They get calls from other firms, emails from other firms introducing new technologies or new processes, new ways of thinking about the business, and their agency of 20 years is doing none of that. The other reason is they wake up one day and realize that they're the ones bringing all the new ideas to the agency, asking them for their opinion, and it's never the other way around. So I've seen plenty of relationships that have been super long standing and everybody's happy, but that marketer wants to move their business forward and the agency just isn't equipped or prepared to be able to carry that client to the next level, or just hasn't been proactively sharing information with the client to let them know that they can do the things that they want them to do. You just fall into sort of this comfortable relationship where you think everything is fine. The orders keep coming in. You don't need to think outside the box. And then one day it just starts falling apart on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wonder, because you just brought it up a minute ago, technology is outpacing almost all of our abilities to even keep up. But that's the agency's job, right? We need to keep up. And would you go as far as to say that we need to lead our clients as all of this evolves?
I think so, yeah. And I think to stay on top of trends, to know what kind of technologies exist out there, not chase the shiny objects, but find things that you can bring to your client and show them how it applies to their business, how it's going to help move their business ahead. Because not only are marketers being asked to do more with less, but marketers are having to prove out the value of everything that they're doing. So data is key, not for the sake of data, but being able to show the marketer the value and the ROI of the things that they're doing for that particular client. You know, AI is another area where there's a bit of a tension point between agencies and marketers to some degree, where marketers are just wondering, why am I paying this agency this fee if AI is the one the element sort of generating the ideas for my business. And so marketers need to think about sort of how to manage situations like that. I've got a new agency client down in Atlanta. They're a design firm, and design firms are probably the most vulnerable of agency types as it relates to AI. That and probably content marketers as well. But the way they look at AI and the way they communicate it to their clients is AI. The universe is relatively finite. And if you search for the same topic I'm searching for, we're probably going to end up with the same body of information. And what really wins the day is smart, strategic thinking and high value creative development that I can bundle on top of that AI foundation and carry it to a whole nother level. So I think just being really proactive in how you're managing the relationship as it relates to something like AI, and then also being on the forefront of new technologies, being able to help clients again sort of prove out the value of what they're doing. All those kind of things I think are super important in just developing and maintaining a relationship with a marketing client.
I've been a B2B reporter for an awfully long time, and I've traveled in a lot of vineyards. And the more the monoliths, and I can think of some monoliths in your area down there in Cincinnati. A lot of these organizations still to this day do not move fast. My point, though, is the B2B marketing gang, especially with the generative AI stuff and now the agentic world is coming on pretty fast here, they're always kind of the tip of the spear on a lot of new things for the organization. And maybe the organization doesn't know it, but the marketing team does. So that can build fast and too fast, and that can build tension between the client and the agency. I would think that's an awfully fine line to walk, especially these days. So how does an agency do that?
When you say fine line to walk in terms of
the tension, what's good for them that you were talking about that they may not know about, but yet you're the agency, charged with keeping your client out there and on the forefront with the new technologies. You're aware of them as the agency, but maybe they're not as the customer. So that's a tension point. So how do you balance that?
It is definitely. And I think that, communication, it's sort of a relatively simplistic answer, but I think that using any opportunity you can to stay ahead of your marketing client. Not many agencies have great organic new business programs sort of baked into their organization. And if you do, you're sharing ideas with your clients, you're sharing content with your clients, you're talking about trends and making it feel like a natural part of the relationship. I think that makes it a little bit easier to have conversations about maybe the pressures that the CMO is facing as it relates to proving out the value of the things that you're doing for him and for their organization, or having conversations about, new technologies and advances in AI and what the implications are for your agency as it relates to that client. So I think just again, I think it's just having natural dialogue with your client about those topics, and that's probably the best way to introduce them, and in doing so, being able to show that client sort of the value that you can bring as it relates to some of those changes that are taking place in the market.
I also think that we might be a little distracted and in the wrong direction when we think about AI. And it's only been, 18 months? I mean, it moves so fast. What we thought it was going to do for us was help us write content, help us put out a PR release quicker and easier. But that's a distraction today, because what we're seeing and need to communicate, to your point, is that it is going to change the buy cycle. It is going to change procurement. It is going to change how agents, and maybe not humans, are going to interact with your site. And I don't want to be distracted about whether or not I saved or found some efficiency in writing a press release, because I just don't think that's the game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think if it gets to that point in a client agency relationship, it becomes really difficult for that agency to win that conversation. And I think that, being able to communicate the value that it can bring from a foundational standpoint is important. And are agencies going to go away because of AI? No, I don't think so. I think there will be some, because they don't think about it in the terms that you just talked about. But it is foundational. I think it can provide a lot of value. I think agencies need to be able to communicate what that value represents and how the agency can deliver on that value to their clients. And I think any reasonable, rational client is going to get it. You can see AI pretty clearly if all you give me is AI and you don't give me any thinking on top of it. So, B2B marketers are fairly savvy, and I think they'll recognize, AI when they see it, and recognize the fact that the agency isn't building on top of that the value and the benefits that they can really bring to that marketer's organization.
Since you're on the front line here, and one of the most overused terms of today, literally, is digital transformation. But now, having said that, there's just a lot of change that has to go on. So I think here, even though it might be overused, digital transformation is indeed a key term here. So agencies, as you've been speaking about here, have to transform. But how do you do that? I mean, what's your best advice on transforming anything from workflows and testing environments to how you pitch press releases and get buyback into that, or procurement? And then what are the pain points and how do you overcome them? Sorry for the multi-long question here, but
no, that's okay.
At the end of the day here is, how do they transform? What's your best advice there?
Well, I would almost argue that if they aren't transformed by now,
the train left the station.
They may want to find a new job.
All right.
No, I mean, somewhat serious. I mean, if they're playing in the digital space right now, and they have fully sort of transformed, the nature of what they do, then it really boils down to how am I going to stay ahead of the game? I talked about on the agency search side, what marketers are looking for are agencies that keep them ahead of the curve. So just because I've evolved today doesn't mean that the way I look today is going to be of value a year from now or 2 years from now, because so much is changing so fast that you need people in your organization that can help you stay on top of it. Just another agency that recently came on board, they've got a strategist who's dedicated to AI as an example, and understanding what's happening in that space and how to leverage what's happening in that space and use it to the benefit of their clients. So if an agency feels like they have fully digitally transformed themselves, the key now is staying ahead of the game. If an agency is, sitting and is played in a very traditional space and is trying to find their way into areas that can sort of set them on a different course, that's going to be a hard thing to do because the market today has become so specialized, and you've got agencies zeroing in on specific, types of deliverables. I bring up sort of agency experience here. We've got an agency that recently came on board that different from the Atlanta agency, but a design firm. And they thought that over the course of their tenure that they needed to branch out and get into other areas in order to address client needs and help build their business. Well, what they realized was that it was fine at first, but as the market changed, things got more sophisticated. They just didn't have the wherewithal, the capabilities, the desire to stay ahead of the curve. And they're at a point now where they've sort of reverted back to focus on branding only. That's their expertise. That's what they do well. And it's played out really nicely for them as a result. So I think if you're not in it now, you may want to take a step back and think about what got you to where it got you, and is there value in staying true to that? Um, you know, if there's a super strong desire to sort of branch out, then start looking at partnerships, maybe versus bringing stuff in house. Because the other thing we've learned through our surveys is that while marketers 5-7 years ago kind of expected agencies to have all of the core services under one roof to meet all of their needs, today 70% of marketers are much more willing to let you be a contractor and curator as a lead agency and find the resources that they need and manage those for that marketer so that they don't have to do it themselves. So there are opportunities if you want to kind of move yourself forward, but it takes time and it takes patience, and it takes some skill in being able to find the right partner agencies or bringing the right talent in house to manage it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and I think that model is actually more believable, right? I don't want to tell everybody that I've got all the answers, but I want to tell everybody that I've got all the specialists.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you just defined the opportunity for agencies very clearly. We need to own AI in all its capabilities, and we need to lead teaching organizations how to use it, how to capitalize on it. We need to teach sales how to use it. We need to teach e-commerce how to use it. I think they're in a really great position to do exactly what you were just talking about. And that is, let's lead and make sure that we own the knowledge and that we've got all the capabilities to dispense that knowledge to help corporations grow.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It really is up to the agency to do that.
Yep.
You can't wait for your client to ask it. You've got to be ahead of the game, and however you do it, whether it's through thought leadership or organic conversations you're having.
It's going to have to be all of the above. Yeah,
right,
absolutely,
right.
To be believable. Yep. So, all right. So I know we're kind of at the end of our episode, but I just wanted to give you another opportunity to tell us, are there any other pain points that, clients or corporations are saying about agencies that we could help somebody fix today?
That's a good question. I think you hit on one of them earlier, and that's just suggesting that as an agency, I can do it all, and I think that marketers have a hard time distinguishing between agencies because so many of them look alike, and I tell our agency clients and prospects, y'all kind of do the same thing. What separates out, great agencies from just so-so agencies is the thinking and the strategy and the smarts to be able to keep the agency on the forefront of change. And so being able to articulate core expertise in a category, expertise in terms of technical skills, being able to be relevant and meaningful to that client and showing them you understand the problems that they're dealing with, versus just being sort of this generalist, generic agency that sure you can do whatever with any kind of client, but at the end of the day, that's only going to get you so far.
Absolutely. So there's some language that's antiquated now. Language like full service, integrated,
Sure.
None of that really applies to today's marketing environment. So
Sure.
I'm sure people will take your advice and they'll find strategic alliances to partner so that they can become knowledgeable in all these areas and then be transparent about it, right? I think
Sure.
just makes us a better partner.
Definitely. Yeah.
Some great advice today, Mark. We really appreciate it. I think the agencies who are listening have learned a lot. And I also think, just some of the internal marketers, they're now armed with a few better questions and ways to work with their agency too. So there you go. We saved the world.
They take a flamethrower to this place.
Ooh, right?
Yay! Yeah, boom, or yoo-ha, or whatever that was.
No, hey, listen, I appreciate you, Liz and Mark, for inviting me here today, and it's a great topic. The whole B2B space, and there's so much going on there. There are a lot of exciting things happening, and appreciate that you're trying to keep others, on top of it and a bit ahead of it as well.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us. And I also want to take a quick minute to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank the Motion Agency. They have just been ranked the #2 fastest growing B2B marketing agency in the U.S. So congratulations to them and their success. I hope you check them out. And I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Embas. Embas is a marketing communications consulting firm that also specializes in content and change management. So to everybody out there, thank you very much. I think we cut through some bull today.
We did.
And we hope to keep doing it. So we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.